So let's mark our pause by closing our eyes and taking a final fidget in order to be comfortable enough to sit for a few minutes, a short while, and relax. And allow for our attention to fall on the voice that is using language into the space that we share, applying words to move beyond the words themselves, to highlight or point to the collective and common experience we're sharing that the usual word meditation points to. So if we feel our body, and by this we're not talking about an emotion, but more sensation in the body, we'll probably notice the presence of our feet on the floor, buttocks on the seat, perhaps our backs are leaning against a chair. And around the stomach we'll notice the movement of the body as life-giving oxygen is breathing in and out, is happening to us. And this overall feeling of the body, the experience of hearing a voice and hearing the end of the sentences when the voice has made its current point. Act as anchors to the present moment. Of course, really there's no moment and there's no present. Were we to be present or in the moment, that would determine that there was something other than the moment or something outside of the present. If we were to look for a moment other than another moment, we wouldn't find one. We'd still find the same experience. If we were to look for the present, or a different present, we would find only what we usually refer to as the past, or an imaginary future. So without concepts like moment and present, or past and future. So time and space, that is, that time when I first said present, or that time when I first said moment. Without concepts of space and time, there is no present, there is no moment. In fact, without language, neither can be found, or without reference to memory. So what this shows us is that, in fact, there is just this experience, or we might call it this experience, or this experience, but really there's no division between experience, experience, experience. In fact, experience is unending and unbroken. It is undivided, it is indivisible. In the absolute sense, there is just here with a capital H, and it is a constant. The way in which we process or understand whether this is true for us or not is to see that here, here, and here, and here, and here have no markers. There's no dividing line between this and this and this and this, without reference to memory, language, or time. So we are aware of here, so awareness is a common experience for each of us in our direct experience. We're aware of this, or here, use those words interchangeably. And without language, no time is passing. This here is not framed by a point at which what we would now call the previous here changed into the current here, and it's the same here. There's no dividing line. Here is constantly occurring, constantly unfolding. There's a constance of experience itself, not the experience of this and that or here and there, but experience itself is perpetually happening. And this very here-ness, thisness, is sometimes difficult for the mind, because the mind relies on time and space and thought and concepts, imagination, reference to memory. Mind is the amalgamation of thinking, feeling, sensing and perceiving, or the field of perception. Perception itself, as an aside, is the same for all of us. We all share the same field of perception. Yet how we perceive through that field of perception is apparently different for each of us based on our conditioning, our thoughts about what we're perceiving, our feelings about what we're perceiving. But perception itself is also a common experience. We all perceive. In this pause, and this pause, notice sensation as it appears in the body, feet, movement of stomach, supporting chair. Join these together and notice sensation, the field of sensation as it is known. So look to see if we can say there is a knowing of sensation. We don't need the words body or chair or feet. At the moment, in the field of awareness, sensation is known. And if we reduce concepts right down, we can say sensation is known. There's a knowing of sensation. Or we'd usually say feet, movement of stomach and chair if we were to describe sensations, but leaving aside descriptive concepts. The movement of the stomach is always a known sensation. It's just we largely overlook it by thinking, feeling, sensing and perceiving a world of objects and a character called me and a story about that. But really this personality, this me, the world of objects, time and space and thought and feeling and sensation. They don't really mean that we lose awareness, we just become aware of these things rather than resting or knowing awareness itself. But if we lose all of those concepts, right now we can see we don't need anyone else, we don't need our personality. Unless there is any bodily discomfort, we don't need any reference to pain. Even bodily discomfort right now would merely be sensation appearing in awareness. We would be aware of sensation. Now, human reference point for that would be, I have a headache, or my leg hurts, or my arm is in a sling and such, or my mouth is dry. But as an appearance in awareness, any of those or any other similar sensation would simply be a known or knowing experience in awareness, or a colouring of awareness itself, without concepts, reference to memory. So these usual reference points, these usual objects, are the ways in which we understand the world. the material world, the physical world, a world of concepts and forms. Our lofty spiritual term is a world of forms, because they are all things. Forms are things, things are objects, objects have objective qualities. If we now apply the words fire engine, there it is. There's a concept called fire engine, and the usually red vehicle appears in the mind with a reference to memory, having experienced fire engine in the past. And now if we apply the words ice cream, fire engine is replaced by ice cream, conceptually. Although fire engine's now back because fire engine is repeatedly being said once more, but let's say ice cream, giraffe, 1970s, pain, fear, suffering, heartbreak, joy, happiness, holidays. So we move through numerous concepts, numerous references to memory, numerous thoughts and feelings about the concepts that arose. And this was to articulate the point that these are things, and one thing replaced another thing, the previous thing. They referenced time because not only did we refer to memory, but we replaced one concept with another concept and moved along a list of concepts, seeming to happen in a thing called time, because we started at fire engine and ended up somewhere around holiday. But really each of them was appearing spontaneously, albeit conceptually and with reference to previous experiences of each of those things. But one wasn't really replacing the other one. There's a spontaneous concept of a fire engine that led to a spontaneous concept of an ice cream, and a holiday and suffering and fear. But each of them was the current direct experience, spontaneously arising as the concept was pointed to by the words. Similarly, here if we point to being aware, attention moves very quickly to simply being aware. So we move from a world of forms and objects and things and concepts and time and space, all of which are objects and have objective qualities. Were I to say to you time, we would be able to have an entire discussion about time. And then we could have an entire discussion about something else, space. Places, spaces, really places that we've been to. And if we say being aware, attention moves once more to being aware. And actually notice the experience of being aware. So let's move beyond the concept of awareness and notice not simply the experience, but let's use the phrase, the screen of awareness. To get there, we could currently say we're aware of a voice, and then aware of spaces or the absence of the voice when it stops talking. Here is the voice, now comes the absence. Whether there's the voice, this voice, or the absence, this absence. We can readily see we are aware of both this voice and this following absence. But awareness isn't divided, obscured by a voice or the absence of a voice. awareness is. So we could say, in the absolute sense, awareness is simply aware. And at times attention diverts, and there's an apparent sense of awareness being aware of something. We can explore that a little further and say that awareness is only really aware of itself and movements of itself that seem to appear as concepts we're familiar with. The point is, we're trying to say that awareness is undivided by, unhindered by the objects that it becomes aware of. The human predicament is that we usually, as most people do, almost 8 billion people now do, take themselves to be the things they are aware of, a world of objects, relationships, people, places, things, times, events, labels, phenomena. And in so doing, become so attached to or addicted to a world of forms and objects, largely never get to ask themselves questions about absolute experience. We might be given the opportunity to ask questions about the meaning of life, we all do really, or go through a particular calamity in our life that asks of us to ask larger questions. And we engage in spiritual communities, spiritual practices, religious practices, therapeutic practices. We change our life. We remove objects that no longer have meaning or that have negative meaning, and we might replace them with new objects that have positive or hopeful meaning. At its more mature level, at the most mature level of asking the most profound questions of life, we might encounter ways of looking at reality more precisely for what it is, rather than for the meaning it has for the individual personality. This inevitably becomes a process of subtraction, of simplicity, of retreat. Philosophically, we might say this is the removal of objects and concepts and time and space, at least in terms of study, in the search for understanding and meaning. We reduce things down. Most people holiday. This is somewhat a way of understanding the way in which people find more happiness and pleasure in reducing the objects of their lives. Primarily these objects are our work lives, our responsibility, our accountability, and we take pleasure seeking trips. And often we tolerate brief periods of this up against extended periods of labour and activity. This is all fine. This is the way of the world. Here we are reducing all of this searching and seeking and using a reduction in the present moment. Not that there's any presence or any moment, as we said, but even moving beyond those ideas and time and space and saying, well, what am I actually experience? What is the nature of experience? Not simply what is there an experience of. My life is an experience of these things, people, places and things. Experience right here is an experience of a voice and the absence of a voice. But what is the nature of experience itself? We turn our attention away from even the voice and the absence of the voice and look at the qualities that serve to make up the nature of experience itself. And here, objectless, formless, we used at first the body. We talked of feet on the floor, movement of the stomach, body in the chair. Notice that again, turn attention to those sensations. And now lose concepts of individual parts of the body. Notice the experience of sensation itself. So don't name the experience of the body, but allow for the knowing of what we usually call sensation, but here are abandoning the word and experiencing the sensation directly. And the nature of the experience is known through the quality of awareness that knows it. Be aware. Allow awareness to know itself. And then notice the seeming part of that awareness is the awareness of what we usually call sensation. So awareness, sensation are words that point to the knowing experience of experience itself. So awareness, sensation, experience, when we reduce everything right down, when we simplify not only life, not only personality, not only environment, time and space, when we reduce right down to the raw data of direct experience, we find ourselves somewhere near aware of being aware, in which and as which sensation, experience are words that point to the qualities of this with a capital T. Perhaps from here the slight movement of the stomach, the breathing function, is as far back out into the world of forms as we might go. Again, really the breathing function is a knowing sensation, a movement of awareness. A loftier term for awareness might be consciousness. A rest or abide as consciousness itself, with no interest or attachment to the world of forms, which begin with language and mind. Just be aware or conscious, self-aware.